He fired me, humiliated me in front of the entire office. Thought he broke me, but I didn't just fight back. I bought the entire company. What started as petty revenge became something. The glass desk, lips curled into the kind of smirk you'd only see on someone who thinks they'll never have to pay for what they've done. My name is Jack Harlow, not that Jack Harlow, and 3 months ago, I was fired from a job I'd poured 5 years of blood, sweat, and 3 a.m. breakdowns into. Fired in front of everyone. And it wasn't just humiliating. It was war. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I didn't even blink. But inside, something snapped. Because I knew something my boss didn't. That same morning, I'd seen an email, one he hadn't meant for me to see. And if I was right about what it meant, it was only the beginning. The worst part wasn't the firing. It was the silence that followed. I walked past rows of people who wouldn't meet my eyes. People I'd trained, mentored, defended. They sat frozen at their desks, pretending to type, while I emptied the drawer I'd organized like a shrine to my sanity. One photo. My old notebook. A USB stick with 5 years of late nights and million-dollar ideas. And a letter I'd written to myself after my first day here. No matter what they say, you're going to matter here. That letter felt like a joke now. I turned back to the office one last time and caught a glimpse of my boss watching from behind the tinted glass, smiling, like he just won. You ever felt like your whole life was a rope someone else had been slowly cutting? That was me. I'd worked 60-hour weeks. I'd brought in clients we had no business landing. I'd stayed silent when promotions passed me over, convinced that eventually, hard work would speak louder than politics. But that day, I realized something. Loyalty means nothing to a snake in a suit. The email I saw was buried in a thread marked Private Internal Only. A thread I only opened because his assistant accidentally CC'd me. It read, "Once he's gone, move forward with the acquisition. He can't be around for this." Acquisition? Gone? They wanted me out not because I wasn't good at my job, but because I was too good. They were planning something big, something shady, and they needed me out of the way. But they made one mistake. They let me walk out with the USB drive. I crashed on my cousin's couch that night. One pillow, one blanket, and one burning obsession. Make them regret it. I replayed every meeting in my mind, every conversation, every suspicious glance. And when I plugged in that USB stick and opened the files, what I found nearly made my heart stop. It wasn't just marketing plans or strategy decks. It was IP. Code. My code. They'd taken work I'd done on nights and weekends and stamped the company's name on it. My algorithms. My frameworks. My architecture. And they were selling it. Without me. Without paying me. And if the timestamps and metadata were right, it was a violation so massive, it could cost them everything. One folder was named ac_pitch_doc_final. I clicked it open. Inside? A pitch to a multi-billion-dollar tech firm. The pitch was based on the software I created. Worse? They were about to close the deal. Valued at $74 million. I sat there in the dark, the only light from my laptop screen, heart pounding like a war drum. And that's when I knew. They thought they'd erased me, but I had the receipts. I went back the next day, not to beg, to bait. I walked right past reception, wearing the same suit I'd been fired in. Head held high, calm, collected. Security didn't stop me. They remembered me as the good guy. I walked past my old team, past the break room, past the copier that always jammed. And I slipped a letter, anonymous, typed, and signed only with an X, into every mailbox on the executive floor. If you sign this deal, you're complicit in intellectual property theft. You've been warned. I have everything. X. They thought I was gone. But ghosts don't go quietly. That night, I made a call to a woman I hadn't spoken to in years, Vanessa Liu. Brilliant. Ruthless. And my ex. She was now a venture capitalist. And she owed me a favor. I told her everything. She didn't hesitate. "You're not going to sue them," she said. "You're going to own them." Those words lit something inside me. Because I didn't just want justice. I wanted the whole damn building. Red triangle pointed down, and I was going to take it, brick by brick. They say when one door closes, another opens. But no one ever talks about the hallway in between. Dark, cold, echoing with the sound of everything you just lost. I stood in that hallway, metaphorically and literally, right outside the building I used to call my second home. Still holding my cardboard box. Still feeling the burn of Alan's smug, corporate smile betrayal. Still reeling from the words he hurled like poison-tipped knives. "It's just business, Jake. Nothing personal. Bullshit." It was personal. He made it personal the moment he humiliated me in front of the entire floor. I didn't go home that night. I walked aimlessly until my legs gave out, and I crashed on a bench 2 blocks from our old college campus. It was 2:47 a.m. when my phone lit up. Blocked number. No caller ID. I hesitated, then answered. Silence. Then a whisper. I heard what happened. My heart dropped. Who is this? The voice didn't respond. Just breathing. And then, one sentence. He made a mistake. Click. I stared at my screen, chilled to the bone. I didn't recognize the voice, but something told me this wasn't over. Someone was watching. Someone who knew more than I did. And someone who wanted me to do something about it. Weeks passed. Unemployment hit like a wrecking ball. I was down to canned soup and stale cereal. But I still had one thing. My dignity. And a draft email. The one I never sent. Subject line. Alan Foster is a liar. It detailed everything, his shady vendor deals, the time he took credit for my project, the under-the-table bonuses. I never hit send. Why? Because I wanted something bigger than public shame. I wanted power. That's when I remembered something. During one of our after-hours meetings, Alan drunkenly mentioned that our parent company was struggling. We're just a line item in a failing portfolio, he slurred. One bad quarter, and they'll sell us off. That was opportunity. I reached out to Maggie. We hadn't spoken in years. Last I heard, she was running a venture capital firm in Boston. When I called, I expected a brush-off. Instead, she laughed. Jake Reese, the golden boy himself. What hole did you crawl out of? I told her everything. She went quiet for a long time, then said, meet me in 2 days. Manhattan. Don't bring anyone. 2 days later, I walked into a glass-walled conference room where Maggie sat, legs crossed, smirking like a shark who smelled blood. I did some digging, she said. That company is barely floating. The parent firm's looking to offload anything that isn't printing cash. I can get you the offer sheet, but it won't be cheap. I swallowed hard. How much? She slid a folder across the table. I opened it. $5.8 million. Maggie smiled. You still want revenge? Maggie introduced me to her team, analysts, lawyers, people who wore power like cologne. They didn't ask why I wanted the company, only how fast I could move. She fronted me the capital, on one condition. You stay out of the spotlight, until it's yours. For 6 weeks, I was a ghost. But behind the scenes, we gutted them. Every vendor contract, reviewed. Every license, leveraged. Every client, we whispered rumors. Their margins shrank like melting ice. Alan must have felt it. The tightening noose. But he didn't know who was pulling the rope. Not yet. Then came the day. The parent company put Alan's division on the market. Quietly. Privately. Desperately. They were hemorrhaging cash. I made my move. Maggie submitted the offer under a shell company. They accepted. And just like that, I owned it. But I didn't tell Alan. Not right away. No, I wanted him to squirm first. A week later, I scheduled an investor audit. I watched from a hidden camera feed as Alan paced in his office, fuming about the new owners sticking their noses where they don't belong. Then I hit the buzzer. The receptionist announced, Mr. Reese is here to see you. Alan looked confused, then panicked, then pale. I walked in, slow, deliberate, like a ghost walking back through his own murder scene, and smiled. Hey, Alan. Miss me? He stood up fast, already sweating. Jake? What the hell? How did you? I tossed the folder on his desk. Ownership papers. Signed. Stamped. Irrefutable. He opened it, hands shaking. When he looked back up at me, the color was gone from his face. You bought us, he whispered. I leaned in, voice low. No, Alan. I bought you. The receptionist nearly fell out of her chair when she saw me walk into the building the next morning. Hair combed. Suit sharp. Smile wide. Good morning, Mr. Reese, she stammered. I'd waited a long time to hear that again. But this time, I wasn't a cog in the machine. I owned the damn factory. And Alan? He was still in his glass office, still pretending this wasn't real. Still clinging to the idea that somehow he'd survive it. But deep down, I knew he already felt the floor falling out. The first thing I did was call a meeting. All staff. Mandatory. No excuses. People filed in slowly, whispering, confused. They saw me at the head of the table and froze. I let the silence stretch before speaking. My name is Jack Reese. Some of you know me. Some of you fired me. Nervous laughter. No one's losing their job today. But things are going to change. I laid out the new policies. No more underpaid overtime. No more toxic managers. Open door. Transparent payroll. And the best part? HR reported directly to me now, which meant Alan had no protection left. My second move? An audit. A real one. I brought in an independent consultant, Carmen Vega, a forensic HR specialist who looked like a librarian and worked like an assassin. She found everything. Ghost employees. Shell vendors. A travel budget that paid for Alan's second family's beach house. Carmen handed me the report, her eyes gleaming. Want me to handle the terminations? I smiled. No, I said. I want to do it myself. One by one, I brought them in. The VP who blocked my raise? Gone. The project manager who stole credit for my team's code? Fired. The director who laughed when I was escorted out? I made him watch me delete his access live. They didn't even fight it. Because by then, the building was mine, cell by cell, system by system. I wasn't done. See, I didn't just buy the division. I negotiated a board seat at the parent company. And when I walked into that first meeting, every suit in the room turned to stare. The chairman leaned over, confused. Wait, you're Jack Reese? I nodded. Didn't you get fired? I slid a copy of the acquisition papers across the table. Not anymore. The CEO stared at me like I was a ghost. You're the one who bought the failing asset? Yeah. Turned it profitable in 28 days? Also me. I paused, then smiled. You're welcome. I saved Alan for last. It had to be poetic. I waited until 5:59 p.m., just as he was packing up. He didn't look up when I entered. Just muttered, here to gloat. I sat across from him. Calm. Casual. Just wanted to thank you. He laughed bitterly. For what? For showing me how dangerous it is to underestimate someone who builds in silence. I slid a check across the desk. It wasn't a bonus. It was his severance, minus the stolen travel expenses. He glanced at it and winced. You think you've won, Jack? I leaned in. I haven't won. I've just started. The next week, something wild happened. A rumor started spreading through the company. That Alan had been caught stealing. That he'd been fired in disgrace. That he'd cried on the way out. I never confirmed it. I didn't have to. But I made sure the 6th floor got a copy of Carmen Vega's audit. Unredacted. And let's just say, they started knocking on my office door with very different energy. Red triangle pointed out, but then came an email. No name. No return address. Just one sentence. You think Alan was the top. He wasn't. I stared at the message for 10 straight minutes. You think Alan was the top. He wasn't. No signature. No trace. Nothing but a warning dressed as a threat. Most people would have ignored it. I clicked reply and typed 3 words. Who was then? The message bounced. No such address. That's when I realized. I hadn't just humiliated Alan. I'd stepped into someone else's territory. Someone who liked shadows and didn't like being watched. Back when I was just another face at the company, I used to handle Alan's system access during late-night rollouts. The guy never changed his login credentials. Ever. So I tried his old password on the exec server. It worked. Inside was a trove of documents, things I shouldn't have seen. Encrypted chat logs, offshore payments, and a project folder titled Horizon Black. Inside were schematics, timelines, names. One caught my eye. Reese, J. Me. They tagged me long before the firing. I wasn't just collateral. I was part of something. I printed the files and laid them across my kitchen table. At first, it didn't make sense. Code names, checklists, timelines marked in quarters, not dates. Then I found the key. A PDF titled BAS Funding Protocol. Black Internal Systems. A subdivision of the company that didn't officially exist. And it was funneling money millions into side ops. One of them? Reese Contingency, Alpha. It was dated 6 months before I got fired. And under it, Project Dandelion, asset removal via discreditation. They planned it. Every step. They didn't just fire me. They erased me. Or tried to. I called Vanessa. Told her everything. She didn't speak for a full minute. Then said, BS was real. It got shut down 5 years ago, publicly, at least. I asked, what were they? She sighed. Internal enforcement. Corporate intelligence. Spying. Leverage. I swallowed. And Alan was part of that? No, she said. Alan worked for someone who was. That's when it clicked. Alan wasn't the king. He was the pawn. And now, I had their documents. Their dirty laundry. Their secrets. That made me one thing. A threat. One file led me to an address. On paper, it was listed as a third-party logistics hub. But I knew better. I drove out at midnight. Deserted highway. Fog rolling and thick as soup. No signage. No lights. Just a rusted gate and a keypad. I typed in the only date I remembered from the files, March 17th, 22. The gate buzzed open. Inside was a warehouse full of empty crates. Except for one corner. A room built into the space. Reinforced walls. Deadbolt locks. Inside? A single desk. One laptop. One safe. I cracked the laptop. On it? Surveillance videos. From my apartment. From months ago. They'd been watching me. Before I ever gave them a reason. I sent Vanessa clips from the laptop. 5 minutes later, she called me. Panicked. Where are you? Near the warehouse. Get out. Now. Her voice wasn't just afraid, it was furious. That's federal-level surveillance, Jack. If they find you there, you don't just get sued. You disappear. I hung up and bolted. And as I pulled out of the lot, a black SUV turned onto the road behind me. Headlights off. No plates. I ran red lights. Cut through parking lots. Lost them barely. But I knew now. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was survival. Red triangle pointed down, and if I didn't figure out who was running BS, I'd be next. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. After escaping the black SUV, I parked 5 towns over, sat in a 24-hour diner, and opened the last encrypted document from the warehouse laptop. Inside was a full dossier. The title was simple. Redacted Personnel File, Reese, Jack. There were surveillance photos, financial breakdowns, behavior logs. Then, in bold red letters, subject selected for observation tier 3. Lineage confirmed, level Z. I had no idea what that meant. But there was one name, on the approval line, that stopped my breath cold. Director's signature, T.C. Renner. I knew that name. Everyone in the company did. He wasn't just a board member. He was the board's founder. And he hadn't been seen in public in over 10 years. I called Vanessa again. She answered in one ring. Did you find something? I told her about Renner. The silence on the other end was thicker than before. I thought he was gone, she whispered. Retired. Out of the game. He's not. She swore under her breath. Jack, if Renner signed your surveillance file, this goes way higher than Alan. Why me? I asked. Why track me? You don't know? Her voice cracked. Jack, your dad used to work for Renner. What? He was one of the first BIS architects. That's why they flagged you. You weren't just talented. You were bloodline. I went back to my apartment at dawn. For the first time in weeks, it was quiet. Too quiet. No neighbors. No barking dogs. I checked the hallway camera I'd installed when the stalking started. There were 6 missing hours from last night. Just gone. I tore apart my closet and found an old box I hadn't touched since my dad died. Buried under a stack of photos was a cassette tape, labeled in my dad's handwriting. Renner, last meeting. I didn't have a player, so I drove to a thrift store, bought one, and locked myself in the car to listen. It was grainy, but I could hear 2 voices. My dad. Nervous. Angry. Renner. Calm. Calculated. You said we protect them, my dad said. They are protected. Until they aren't useful. You can't track my son. He's a kid. He's not a kid. He's a contingency. Then a long pause. If you run, Renner said, he won't just lose you. He'll inherit you. Click. The tape ended. I sat there shaking. I hadn't just inherited my dad's name. I inherited his enemies. That afternoon, I went back to HQ. The company I owned. The building I'd fought to take back. And for the first time since I bought it, I felt like it was already lost. Every glass wall felt like a sniper scope. Every smiling employee felt like a spy. I called Carmen Vega, my HR assassin. I need you to check something, I said. Name. T.C. Renner. A pause. He's in the system. What? Jack, he's been here. This year. He visited Alan 6 times. How's that possible? He's listed as a consultant. I nearly dropped the phone. He never left. He just changed names. I went to the top floor. The executive archive. Old files. Dusty computers. Analog backups. And there, in a locked drawer, I found it. A printed email from over a decade ago. From Renner. To Alan. Subject, Reese boy. Body. Start contingency protocol. Frame performance as erratic. Recommend demotion in Q2, firing by Q3. No direct involvement. He must believe it's real. That's when I knew. Alan didn't screw me over for ego. He was following orders. This wasn't revenge. It was a cover-up of something I hadn't even done yet. I sent an anonymous tip to every major outlet, included the audio tape, the surveillance clips, the dossier, the directive email. Within 24 hours, it exploded. EX exec claims Shadow Network controls tech firms. Inside the silent system, the company that tracked its own employees. Jack Reese and the file that started a war. But I knew it wouldn't last. That night, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer, but it left a voicemail. A voice I hadn't heard before. Not Alan, not Renner. Just 4 words. You were never alone. Red triangle pointed down, and suddenly, I wasn't sure who I could trust. Not even myself. I thought I was done. I thought buying the company, exposing the files, burning the black ops, it would all be enough. But then the voicemail hit. For words that wouldn't stop looping in my brain. You were never alone. I started seeing shadows in my own reflection. I started wondering if every choice I made, every step I took, had already been predicted. Because if they built everything around me, then maybe even this revenge was part of their plan. 2 nights after the voicemail, a package showed up. No return address. Inside was a phone. Old. Brick style. Locked. And a note, typed on an old-school typewriter. Break glass only if you're willing to burn it all. I smashed the phone open. Inside? A single micro SD card. Encrypted. I took it to Carmen. She plugged it in. What we found wasn't just company records. It was the founder's protocol. A blueprint. For creating corporate kings. BS wasn't just an enforcement group. They were builders. They chose candidates. Groomed them. Shaped failure into obsession. Obsession into power. Alan? He wasn't their mistake. He was their prototype. I was their product. The files referenced something called Deepline. Not a department. Not a code name. A place. A facility. Shut down 15 years ago after a data collapse. But the location was still there. Upstate New York. Buried under a decommissioned telecom site. I drove through a snowstorm to reach it. What I found? A bunker. No lights. No markings. A keypad so old it looked fossilized. I punched in my birth date. The door opened. Inside was a dimlit room with 3 chairs. Each had a plaque. One said, Prototype A terminated. One said, Prototype B exiled. The third said, C activated. And a picture of me. The room buzzed with static. Then a voice. Renners. This isn't a prison. It's a mirror. What you do next decides who you really are. I said nothing. Then another voice spoke. Vanessa. But it wasn't her. It was a recording. Jack, they built you to win. But you don't have to become them to beat them. Then the screens flickered. And Renner appeared, live. He looked old. Tired. But still sharp as glass. I can't stop you, Jack. I don't want to. I just want to make a deal. Why should I trust you? Because you've already made the choice that matters. You use the system. You beat the machine. What's the deal? You keep the company. You run it. But you run ours, too. You become what we couldn't. And if I say no? He smiled. You disappear. Quietly. Before I answered, I went to the final archive listed in the Founder's Protocol. A subfolder labeled Future Candidates. Inside? Hundreds of names. Dates of birth. School records. Family profiles. People who didn't even know they were being watched. Groomed. People like me. And one file labeled. Reese, C. Born 2023. My little brother. My mother never told me. Renner knew. And they were already planning to do it again. I made my decision. I called every contact I had left in media, politics, the Fed. And I leaked everything. The Deepline files. The candidate index. The surveillance programs. I didn't just torch the system. I made sure no one could build it again. But I left one thing intact. My company. And I renamed it. Freehold. The tagline? No kings. No shadows. Just truth. I lost a lot. Maggie walked. Carmen disappeared. Vanessa vanished off the grid. But the story broke headlines for weeks. Congress launched hearings. Tech firms scrubbed their archives. Renner? Dead 2 weeks later. Natural causes, they said. Sure. And me? I still run Freehold. But every now and then, I get a letter. No return address. Sometimes it's a photo. Sometimes it's a name. A file. A warning. And always signed. See? My brother. Red triangle pointed out because this story didn't end with me buying the company. It began there. And now, I'm the one watching.